Good afternoon, Kim. Thanks for joining us today. We'd like you to talk a little bit about your background and why you feel you're qualified to serve on the HOA board.
Good afternoon. My experience and background began 34 years ago when I bought a small tennis and swim club in Livermore, California. At that time, the club had 175 members. It grossed $100,000 a year and was losing money. Nobody wanted it. Since then, in the last 34 years, I renovated the existing pool, added 3 new pools. I designed and built 52,000 square feet of space. Now we have 3,000 members and will gross a little over $3 million a year. My facilities and services are very similar to what's here at Shadow Hills, except for a golf course. My wife and I moved here about 2 years ago, and in that process I thought perhaps my unique skill set would contribute to the future of Shadow Hills, so I decided to run for the board.
Thank you, Kim. A couple questions for you now. There's been some issues that have been brought up during the campaign. First one I'll ask is about the current level of fines at $200. What is your assessment of that level of fines, and what would you do about them if you were elected to the board?
Well, the main issue is safety. I think everybody will agree we have to maintain the facility and, in a safe environment. The $200 fine appears to have worked. The stats show that the violations has dropped 50% in the last couple of years. The question is, if $50 did not work and $200 did work, I'd like to think that possibly there's an amount in between where it's less painful for first-time offenders and still get the job done. So I would ask that the safety committee review it and see if there's an amount that can be tried that's lower than 200 and still achieves their safe goals. I'd be in favor of that.
Thank you, Kim. Another issue that's been brought up during the campaign is reducing the current dues level by $20 a month from the current $255 a month. What are your thoughts on a dues reduction?
There's no question I believe we should be as cost effective as possible, but we can't negatively impact maintenance or operations. That would ultimately impact home value. I'm always open to looking at a reduction, but to do so, I need to see financial projections that show where the $20 would be cut out of the operating budget. So far, I've seen no cuts in the operating budget that would not negatively impact. So I'm in favor of the $255, because when I reviewed that budget, I just don't see where you'd make a cut without negatively impacting the operations.
Thank you, Kim. Another issue that's come up is this ad hoc litigation committee. What is your assessment of that committee, and what would you do if elected to the board?
I believe 5 members of the board are elected. All 5 members should be participating in the discussion about any litigation. Unless someone recuses himself for a conflict of interest, all 5 members should participate.
Thank you. Another issue that's been on the back burner has been this forensic audit. What's your assessment of the need or lack of to have a forensic audit of our books?
The Finance Advisory Committee, which from my understanding is basically new in the sense there's a lot of new people on this committee within the last year. I think the concern over this forensic audit is simply that in past years, the financial statements were not clear in the presentation. They didn't flow with the audit. With the hiring of a new controller and with new people on this Finance Advisory Committee, the presentation of the budget and its financial statements is much more clear. So I would urge patience. Let's have the Finance Advisory Committee and the controller, give them 3-4 months, and then perhaps with the new presentation, there'll be a greater understanding of how the cash flow works, and the concern about a forensic audit will no longer be necessary.
Thank you, Kim. If elected, what would be your primary focus as a board member?
I believe the top priority for all the board members should be the financial health of the HOA. The financial health of this HOA will ultimately mean the highest possible home value. It will also lead to the best quality of life for all of us here. So balanced budgets, stable dues, reserves for the future will ultimately mean the facilities and service are maintained perfectly, our quality of life will be improved, and our home value be at the highest possible level. In closing, I think what I bring to the table here at Shadow Hills is a very unique skill set. When I moved here 2 years ago, my wife and I absolutely think this is a terrific place to live. So I did want to contribute. I think contributing to the future of Shadow Hills would be beneficial. And it seemed like the best position for me is on a board, because what the board does is what I do every day for a living. The budgeting of these type of facilities, the reserve studies, the safety, the legal aspects, all combining in order to make a decision that's in the best interest of all of us, short and long term, is what I do. So if you'll all have me, I'd love to serve. It would be a privilege. Thanks very much.